Hey guys, I just wanted to let you know that the video you were about to watch is actually part of a three-part series that was initially recorded as a single video, but it turned out longer than expected. So I figured, hey, I like the shorter format. Let's split this up. To check out the other parts of this video, look at the description. You can find the playlist and the links there. Hope you enjoy. Hey guys, Pastor Mark. I wanted to take a moment to respond to a comment on a video. One of the more popular videos that I've put out is the one addressing the issue of slavery in the Old Testament, specifically Leviticus 25, the last few verses like 44 through 46, where it deals with foreigners and the claims that critics make about what this means. It's gotten a lot of views, it's gotten a lot of comments. I might do another video addressing some of the other comments surrounding that and the conversation going on there. There was one comment in particular that really caught my attention. It later got deleted, so I'm not going to give a name or screenshot of it or anything. But I do want to address it because I think there's some very important issues that the commenter brought up. And it's some things that maybe didn't get explicitly expressed in my video and some other things surrounding the issue. So let me just read you this comment and then we'll address what he brings up. He says, "I'm not going to lie. This is the reason I no longer have faith. Watching you and every other theologian I have read and watched purposely construe the meaning of the Bible to fit a narrative that doesn't show the moral failings man displayed writing it. The translations clearly delineate a difference between servitude and slavery. Yet you just say, well, it's actually servitude. If that were the case, the surrounding context wouldn't highlight the differences in each. Watching this video was the deciding factor in my conversion to atheism, or at least agnosticism. Again, it's an untestable hypothesis, so I can't disprove it. Thus, I always leave the possibility open for a God, but in where I was certain of his existence, you pushed me over to uncertainty." So let's take the issues that are brought up in here. There's three that I see. There's this issue of the difference between servitude and slavery and the context that shows. There's the idea of God can't be proven. It's an untestable hypothesis and can't be disproven. And then there is this idea of him walking away from the faith because of a supposedly failed argument. So let's get into these and just kind of address how our thinking on these should probably go. And the person who commented this, if you see this, my heart is absolutely not one of condemnation or criticism. I'm addressing the ideas, not you personally. My hope for you is that you would continue to reflect and to think and maybe, I don't know, this could be helpful somehow. If not, go find someone else who is. But let's get into this. So the first issue that was brought up is this idea of translations delineating the difference between servitude and slavery. Specifically, he says the context highlights the difference. Well, the reality is that translators often have to include their own interpretations in the process of translating. See, most languages do not have a one-to-one direct translation unless there are things that come from related languages, like, French and Spanish. Whenever I was in high school, I took Latin, French, and Spanish between high school and college. I got a lot of mixed up thoughts in there, but some of it was easy because the words were the same, you just had a different ending or conjugation form. And so it was kind of similar. There was a direct one-to-one translation. However, I've also studied Russian, and there is nothing that the Russian words have in common with the English words, and oftentimes the sentence structure is different. If you've ever studied Latin, right, the sentence structure is completely different than the way we structure sentences in English, and so the translation, you have to do some interpretation. Likewise, Hebrew is not something that has a direct translation to English. So a lot of times the translators are actually using some interpretation in their translation. See, he says there's no he says there's a clear difference between servitude and slavery, but in the Hebrew language, there is no such clear difference. Right? There are no specific terms where it goes, this one is for servitude and this one is for slavery. Rather, the Hebrew word ibed, which is translated servant, slave, and all sorts of other things, doesn't have that one particular meaning. It's often referred to as meaning slave, but we actually see all through the scripture where ibed is translated, yes, as those in harsh bondage, like the Israelites in Egypt, but it also refers to indentured servants. It also refers to bonded servants, like people who have pledged their loyalty to serve someone. It refers to hired men. And so the idea that you can just go, oh, well, this one's slavery. Well, actually, no. You do have to look at other factors as you translate that. The only cause, actually, that is mentioned in the entire Pentateuch that I could find that has to do with forcibly pressing someone into service against their will is actually punishment for a crime. In Exodus 22:2, it talks about anyone who steals has to make restitution. And if they personally have nothing to pay back with, to make restitution with, well, then they have to go into servitude in order to pay off that debt. That's the only instance of forced servitude that I see. Other than that, the Bible doesn't actually allow for the forced servitude. Actually, if you kidnap, as was mentioned in the original video, if you kidnap someone or are found in possession of a kidnapped person, it's the death penalty. The slave trade would have gotten you executed by law. And so the idea that in the Old Testament, in Israel, that the Old Testament law is talking about forced servitude, slavery, doesn't seem to hold up. Rather than the context highlighting this difference between servant and slave, it's actually highlighting the difference between Israelite and foreigner, because the difference has to do with the covenant relationship of the people of Israel to God and the promises of God regarding the land. And since Israelites were able to own land and non-Israelites were not able to own land, when it came to land ownership and it came to the year of Jubilee, all this was explained in the original video, that the rules had to be a little different. That the year of Jubilee would come along and you take back ownership of your family land. Well, you can't own something if you're a slave. If you're in servitude to someone else, you need to be set free to go take ownership and to be celebrated and partake in this covenant promise between God and your people. Well, if you're a foreigner, you don't own the land. See, so it's not, in the year of Jubilee as a foreigner, your debt's not canceled. You're not released to go own land because you can't own land. So that's the difference being shown in Leviticus 25. And all of that was explained in the original video. And as we saw in the original video, over and over and over again, the Old Testament points out that foreigners get equal treatment under the law. And so it wouldn't matter what you might think that a particular verse says. Overall, in general, you are not allowed to have different rules, different laws, different justice for foreigners. If it says you cannot mistreat someone, you cannot mistreat them. If it says that servants do not have to be returned. So if a servant runs away, you cannot force them to go back. Doesn't matter if they're Israelite or they're foreigner. And so the idea that there's some delineation between servitude and slavery for the foreigner, it just isn't supported by the text.
Glory to you, King of all days. Glory to you in the highest place.